Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today, following on from the video that I did last week on how female Viagra doesn't actually work the way that people seem to suggest it does in certain viral videos that contain other particularly negative and unhelpful behaviours on display. Whether they are fake or not, they're a bad idea. It's irresponsible as a video. A good number of people came up to me and went, well, if you're looking at that and doing a little bit of looking into the other bits and pieces around it, around the drug, around why it's a bad idea, not just in terms of why it's a bad idea in terms of the doing it, the spiking someone's drink, but in terms of the actual impacts of the drug, like the potential blindness, seizures, other such things from either a substantial dose of said drug or from just side effects that are going to crop up in different people. I had a few people come and be like, well, what about the other forms of female Viagra that are out there, the other kinds of thing? Because isn't it unfair that guys have one and that women don't? And so to begin with, I want to start off this video by kind of just kind of unmessing the kind of definitions that we're using here. So Viagra, in terms of the brand name, which again is sildenafil, the drug that was used to spike the woman's drink in the video I was describing last time, that is literally a drug used for helping blood flow. In men, it isn't a lack of desire for sex that is the problem. It is the capacity for the parts that are required for sex to work properly. And as a result, yeah, that can be a problem for women as well. As I said in that video, there was that one Italian study that I found that was one of the only ones that had any kind of conclusive results, which said, yeah, if it's a mechanical problem, if there's the desire there but there isn't the capacity for sensation, then the extra blood flow might also help a woman, maybe. But anything else beyond that, like the very overly amorous behaviours that we saw in that were in the video that I was talking about before, those just wouldn't happen. They just plainly wouldn't. The drug there is a enabler. It's not an aphrodisiac. And that's what most women seem to want when they're talking about the female Viagra. Because it's not female Viagra that they want, it's a continually useful aphrodisiac, one that isn't hit and miss. And so, as a result, we've got a couple of things that crawl out of the woodwork in regards to this kind of stuff. We've got the drug flibanserin, which is known by the trade name Adyi, which I've talked about before, which other people have done great jobs of ripping to pieces before, but which is now legal and available on prescription and for sale and whatever else in the States, and I'm not sure about its coverage elsewhere. But there are some major issues with that drug, which I'll get into in a minute. But then also we have your other random aphrodisiacs. And so I'll get into those in a moment. But the first thing that I want to say is that I am skeptical of, and granted, I'm never going to take them, but I'm skeptical of these drugs. The same way that I am skeptical and concerned about male hormonal contraception. Not when it comes to these drugs going in, potentially messing up your system, making your body do things that it's maybe not designed for, or that it's not used to, or that could break it in certain ways. Those are things that worry me, especially considering some of the background from these drugs and things, which just makes the mind boggle. But when it comes to things like the male contraceptive, for instance, I'm not saying that they shouldn't happen. The Vasigel alternative, once that has had its full trial period and once it is proven to not cause damage, to be entirely reversible, all that kind of thing. That sounds like a really reasonable and entirely mechanical option that would work very well in that regard. But for in regards to women and the need for an aphrodisiac and all that kind of thing, as we were talking about in regards to sexual confidence, in regards to all of that stuff that we were talking about in regards to relationships and sex and stuff like that only a few weeks back, it seems to me that one of the biggest contributing factors to these drugs working is that you have to pay attention to them. And so your mind is on it more often. And so going for therapy, engaging with your partner more, communicating better, creating a better environment for you to engage in sex sounds like and seems to be a more reliable, worthwhile, and overall helpful way to go about these things. The other thing on top of that, though, would also be some people just don't have a high sex drive. And in the case of women who feel maybe pressured that they need to have a better sex drive for a relationship or whatever else, no, you don't. Just be you. Yes, it might be a frustrating thing for both you and your partner at times, but that's where communication comes in. You don't need to take magical pills or do any silly bullshit just to find a fulfilling relationship. You just need to be honest with who you are and, show the other person that you're in that relationship with who you are, so that you can find the middle ground, so that you can kind of work with each other and find that happy space for the two of you. Mismatched sex drives was something I went over like 2 or 3 times in the videos the last couple of weeks, and so it's a case of there are other ways around it that don't involve taking drugs. Now, the main drug, the one that's the kind of title drug, I guess, for the female Viagra thing, when they're not calling actual Viagra female Viagra and just changing its colour like the sildenafil drugs we were talking about last week. The Adyi pink pill has a lot of issues with it, in my opinion. From the fact that it wasn't approved the first time, and that it seemed to be an awful lot of lobbying and other stuff that got it passed through the second time, more money thrown at it so that the person who bought out the patent for the drug or the licensing for the drug could make back their money and all that kind of thing. That was very concerning to me, that seemed to be the push for it. And where you had a lot of advocacy groups going, oh, well, men have it, so why shouldn't women? No, men have essentially what is a blood pressure pill, which, by the way, is a blood pressure pill that is always also used for women. Men don't have a readily available aphrodisiac that's reliable or anything like that. So the cries of fairness made no fucking sense. But it did seem to have an effect on getting the drug passed to one degree or another, which again was kind of concerning to me in looking at it, and is kind of echoed in some of the other stuff I've been reading around this drug in prep for this video. But the bigger issue is more that 50% of the women in the trials, or thereabouts, in the clinical trials, said that the drug basically had no effect on them. And then on top of that, the drug can cause, again, things like dizzy spells, passing out, nausea, all that kind of stuff. And it gets worse if you drink alcohol with it. And on top of that, it's a drug that requires a build-up in your system. You need to take it every day. And it's not inexpensive. Or at least to my mind isn't inexpensive, considering it's $800 per month in the US. At the moment. And so, with the cost, the requirement for it, the removal of alcohol from your diet and all that kind of thing, it doesn't necessarily surprise me that there are still a lot of other issues around here that haven't been found, haven't been investigated, because according to, at the very least, Wikipedia, they had a very, very slow uptick in regards to people taking advantage of this drug, with February 2016, just after it had been approved, in the middle of 2015, I think. No, in the August of 2015. So the beginning of the following year, only 4,000 people had taken advantage of it. There's not, there didn't seem to be that big an uptick, and so if that then has leveled off a bit because it's not been in the news as much, because you've not had these advocacy groups, you've not had the individuals making behind the drug making a big noise about it, it becomes a bit of a mess. But it also means that any other potential issues that those 4,000 odd or more people are having don't necessarily make it to the press. They don't get shouted about. It's just a passing thing. But again, this is concerning to me, especially considering the link between alcohol consumption and the passing out, the losing consciousness and dizziness and stuff like that. And it's like, that's one step away from being turned into a date rape drug, which really doesn't sit well with me at all. Like, this is, in my opinion, is still a drug that probably shouldn't have been passed if that's one of the side effects, considering its use. But one of the things that stands out to me is because it is a daily use drug where you have to build it up in your system, where you have to take it every day. Your mind, in terms of the women taking it, their minds have to be on the fact that they are taking this drug for the reason that they are taking it, to increase their libido. Their brains are going to be on top of that for the whole time. And these aren't people who are in a study, who are in a controlled study where they know that they may or may not have a placebo in a bottle, and they're all considering it. Yeah? This is your random person who have taken this for a very specific person and spent a not inconsiderable amount of money on it as well. So you've got investment bias, you've got their whole focus in regards to this drug being on that improved kind of feeling of sex and all that kind of thing, or improved want for sex. And so it doesn't instantly go in my mind, oh yeah, well the drug must just be working for these people. Because they are immersing themselves in this idea of it happening, which is something that they could do just by talking to people, just by going to a therapist, just by talking to a sex or relationship coach, by talking to their partner. And so I'm not convinced that this drug, considering the cost, considering the investment in terms of making sure that you take it every day, the staying away from alcohol and monitoring yourself more firmly, I suppose, and all of that kind of thing, and with the fact that it only seems to work for at most half of the people that take it, it just doesn't seem worth it. It doesn't seem to make any sense. But okay, so that's the big female Viagra thing. So what about other forms of aphrodisiac that are usually referred to? And one of the ones that gets brought up a lot are things that essentially promote alterations in either things like estrogen, which again, there are people who have to steer well clear of estrogen in regards to contraceptives and things for various reasons. And so as a result, with that in mind, these aren't going to necessarily do the estrogen-based kind of or testosterone-based aphrodisiacs aren't necessarily going to do them any favors, considering the potential for harm from something like a contraceptive with estrogen in it. But then one of the ones that gets brought up a lot, which I've actually had a couple of people ask me about, which I've just at times gone, huh? But now I've gone and done some research, and it just makes me go, huh. And I know that's not the most helpful answer, but the thing is, it's ginseng. And the prominent thing about ginseng and stuff like that is ultimately it's brought up as a very worthwhile aphrodisiac and has been used for centuries in places like Korea and China and other such places like that. It's like, right, okay, sure, but why? What is it that makes it supposedly effective? And apparently, it's a mix of steroid-like compounds known as ginsenoids. Oh, ginsenosides. Sorry, I missed out the S there. That have an impact on drugs in the brain, corticotrophins and corticosteroids that promote feelings of well-being, promote various other feelings of vitality and better health and all that kind of thing. And where there's been a little bit of research to say that about 60% of men that use this instead of something like Viagra for erectile dysfunction have a overall good time with it. But I would also point out that the study in this case was only 90 people, so it's not exactly a particularly large study. But again, this is impacting your biochemistry in the much shorter term than something like ADI is going to as well. So if you really want something to maybe try, go ahead with this maybe. But even so, I would go, in my mind, I still go, when you've got that physiological impact also being matched with lots of supposedly expert practitioners citing the traditional Chinese beliefs around it as a medicine, saying that it resembles the human form because the ginseng root is phallic. And so as a result, that's why it provides these rejuvenating properties. Yeah, no, not entirely buying that part, honestly. If that were the case, if it was a case of things that you consume and the way that they appear outwardly affecting your condition, I would probably have wings by now for the amount of chicken that I eat. Fortunately, it doesn't work that way. Or, unfortunately, I don't know, being able to fly if that worked would be cool, but it wouldn't because they were chicken wings, probably. But, at least they wouldn't carry me very far. But, as a result, when it comes to this kind of thing, as I said at the beginning, be skeptical. Do your research. Like, it took me maybe an hour or so, hour and a half at most, to dig through the various bits and pieces that I've just been digging through for this video. And so, it's not hard work. If you really want something that is a kind of random shot to improve your situation, maybe try stuff out, but be careful. But then, if what I would suggest more so than anything else is you don't need these things. Yeah, there is no need. Men do not have a drug that they take to make them want sex more. Yeah, the drug that they have is purely for blood flow, essentially. In which case, when it comes to women wanting these things for a greater sex drive, suffice it to say, you are probably going to be in a better situation finding that with people to talk to about things, to support you, to discuss it with your partner, expert opinions from therapists, sexologists, coaches, psychologists, all that kind of thing. And if you really feel that something is wrong, as I've said in numerous other videos, talk to your doctor. Go and see a doctor, have a conversation with them. If you're in a place where you've got free healthcare, especially, go take advantage of it, because this is what they're there for, to deal with these things, including your mental well-being in regards to the stuff that you're worried about. So, there are a whole load of articles out there more that are maybe more inclined towards, oh, we went and did this and tried these things to see if they would work. As I said, if that viral video that was causing me the issues last week had gone and done that instead, all power to them, but they didn't. And so, in response to those people who were like, well, what about all of these other things that call themselves female Viagra? Hopefully, this video's maybe cleared up a little bit of the difference between what actual Viagra does for a guy and what the female Viagra is trying to do for women. And then on top of that, between the Addy / flibanserin stuff and the random other aphrodisiacs out there, hopefully that clears up a little bit around it. And you just need to either go, yeah, okay, I don't have the highest sex drive, and realize that sometimes your sex drive goes up and down. In long-term relationships, there tends to be a dry spell at about the 3 to 4 year mark. But then after that, the numbers suggest that you have a much more fulfilling and satisfying sex life after that 4 to 5 year mark. Provided the relationship is healthy. So focus on that. Focus on being with that person. Focus on building that better relationship. Don't worry so much about the bits in between, because if that person cares about you, they're not going to force you into anything. They're not going to demand anything from you, but they will be very, very grateful and very, very happy if they get to enjoy that kind of intimacy with you. So take the pressure off. And for those of you who are the male part of the discussion, considering all of this is female Viagra, female aphrodisiac focused, just be understanding. Don't try and force things on people. Be appreciative. Just don't be a dick, basically. Use a dick, don't be a dick, I guess, is the way to look at this situation. But otherwise, do your own research. Have that level of understanding so that if there is concern from your other half, then you're there and you have some knowledge to draw from, even if you don't have all of the knowledge, because they'll appreciate the effort that you put in, I guess. But anyway, guys, I hope you found this useful. I hope you found this in some way helpful. But otherwise, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the kind of want for an aphrodisiac. Because again, create the right environment and it tends not to be necessary. It's only when there's an environment that's a bit off or where there are certain other factors involved that the demand becomes higher. And I understand why this is such a high demand thing across the board, because you've got so many people nowadays, men, women, everybody, in high stress environments that kill social interaction, kill libido, all that kind of thing. So I can understand why when guys are still able to just go, yeah, in a moment, there we go, there's a boner, let's go do something. Women are maybe more envious of that and want something to level what they see as a kind of slanting of the playing field. But again, the difference is that one is the pill that they are naming this after is basically a blood pressure drug, and it doesn't do in a guy what they want it to do in women. So it's completely separate and disjointed conversation here, but hopefully this video has maybe kind of brought it down to a more solid thing for us to discuss. So I'd love to know, like, what are your opinions on using these kind of things in looking for aphrodisiacs, trying to bridge those gaps? Have you had issues with this? Would you use these things? All those kind of questions. And any questions you guys have as well. Ask each other, ask me, and we can drop them down in the comments there. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the video later. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more. And I'll see you in the video later. Take care.